So I'm back in Florida. Feels good, y'all. Kind of got too much sun in my eye. Anyway, I'm back in Florida. Feels good. Sunny. It's 85 degrees right now. The Major League Fishing Pro Circuit starts tomorrow. And just chilling, kind of soaking in some rays, thinking about what my plan of attack is going to be for the next couple days. Now, on the Major League Fishing Pro Circuit this year, we have 6 stops. We start off at Lake Okeechobee, which is where I'm at now. In about a month from now, we'll go to Lewis Smith. And then after that, we'll go to Lake Murray at home. Now is it starting to make sense why I'm fishing the Major League Fishing Pro Circuit. After we fish Lake Murray in South Carolina, then we'll head over to, what's the next one? I almost forgot the whole schedule after Lake Murray. That was the one I'm probably most excited about, as well as Okeechobee. Lake Murray, Eufaula in Alabama. Should be a good tournament. And then we'll head to Eufaula in Alabama. Potomac River. Sounds like a good one as well. And then we end the season on the St. Lawrence River up in New York. So it's going to be a lot of big fish caught. Every last one of these tournaments probably stands to be pretty high weight events. And I think you're going to see a couple of tournaments where maybe we kind of approach that 100-pound mark this year. It's definitely possible at 2 or 3 of those events. Now, that won't be all I fish this year. I'll probably, since that's only 6 events, I like to try to fish somewhere between 7 and 9 events a year. I'll probably fish some AAA events mixed in between those when I have the chance to, you know. So definitely going to make the pro circuit my main priority, and then when time kind of is, I got a gap in the schedule, we'll definitely jump in there and fish some other AAA events so it can feel you can't get better if you don't fish tournaments, folks. You got to get in them. You can't win the tournament that you ain't in. So this is what I've been working on with Z-Man for a long time. So I know traditionally we have kind of released new baits and things that we worked on, you know, for all year right before ICAST, right? And you kind of find out about it here. But we kind of wanted to bring you guys, wanted to do it a little different and bring you guys along the design process of this, a new piece of terminal tackle. It's not even a lure. I wanted things like, I'm really particular about things that I use a lot. There's a lot of cool baits out there. There's a lot of new innovation in fishing, but quite honestly, a lot of that stuff it's not tournament tackle. It doesn't apply to anything that I like to do. But one thing that I really do like to do is throw around a jig head and a plastic. And we kind of realize it, you know, we have some jig heads and plastics here at Z-Man, but I really wanted the perfect shaky head. I really wanted the perfect shaky head. That's something I use all the time. That's something that catches fish. So I wanted to design the perfect shaky head for just about anywhere you go. So that's what we came up with here. Kind of got a cool name for it too. Just want to kind of buy into this tech culture that I grew up in and I'm a part of, and some of you guys that are younger than me, because I'm really not that young, that you already know about. We're going to call it SMH, Shaking My Head. So let me know what I thought that was kind of cool. Call it SMH. But I've been kind of working on the design of this thing, thinking about what I really wanted, what I needed, what was most important in a shaky head. So this is what we got. I just cut that one off my hook. So here it is, right here. The SMH, Shaking My Head. Got the perfect size hook, what I feel like, for finesse fishing. Obviously, when you're talking about throwing a shaky head, that's usually going to be a lighter line technique. I don't like to say light line, but a lighter line. Probably going to use as heavy as 15-pound test. I probably would not suggest using this particular shaky head with more than 15-pound test line. I think you're working against yourself, and then you probably need to use a different piece of equipment other than this if you're going over that. But this is the shape, the head design. I kind of blended from another bait that we had at Z-Man. I think I want to work on the line tie though. That is one thing that I think after using it a little bit, we have the line tie. I don't know what you call it, but it's this way. I want to explore it the other way. right? Like horizontal line tie. So first thing you'll notice about this this particular jig head, this is something that I use all the time. That's why I wanted, out of all the things that I could have made a signature of, I wanted a signature jig head. I wanted it to be exactly what I feel like I need in a jig head. And I think we got it pretty daggum close on this first prototype. There is one adjustment that I want to make here. First thing you'll notice about it, let me take the plastic off so you can see exactly what we got here. It's pretty simple, right? A lot of jig heads are doing too much. You got to stay in the pocket with this stuff, guys. Like, everybody tries to make stuff super fancy. It's the little things that matter. Gauge wire, how big's the barb, how big's the keeper, and you know, obviously your head design. I don't like a lot of stuff out of that. You'll notice that this is not a stand-up style jig head. Well, if you use Z-Man plastic, you ain't got to worry about it standing up because it floats. So the tail's automatically going to pull this hook up every time. I can show you that to you in a fish tank. You don't need that flat head that a lot of companies use to stand up. It doesn't do what you think it's doing anyway. It doesn't really equate to that jig head standing on that little flat surface that's the size of a pea every time. That's not how that works. All right. When you pull that bait, most likely it lays down, and when you stop it, especially with Z-Man plastic, because it floats, it'll just rise up. Okay, so I always remember that. If you don't believe me on this, try it in the pool, because I watch stuff like this. A lot of stuff that you think is doing certain things, Carolina rigs, shaky heads, it's not doing anything close to what you think it's doing. It's laying on the bottom flat. And quite honestly, that's what a lot of things do. Like crawfish lay flat on the bottom. They don't stand up with their pinchers up in the air like, say, hey, come get me. They're trying to hide, folks. So they're not doing what you think they're doing. Now, could that help fish get their attention? Absolutely. That's why I like to use the, you know, baits like this. This is a Z-Man finesse worms, and it pairs up really good with this hook. But back to it being not a stand-up. All right, this is why I don't do stand-up heads. I don't like them. You got a flat surface on the back of the head. Bass comes up behind your jig head. Bloop. He grabs the whole jig head like this. Got everything in his mouth. Choked it. Gloop. He's got it, right? You've got 6-pound test, 8-pound test, and a little light wire, you know, like a pretty forgiving rod. What you don't realize is with all of that, when you go to set the hook and you've got a flat surface on that jig head, it doesn't make it easy for you to get a hook in that fish, because that flat surface is not going to be very conducive to you busting the head, busting the flat surface outside of the lips of his mouth that are clamped down on it. You just pretty much made a brush guard, right? He's clamped down on it, it's flat. You go to set the hook, it doesn't come through as easily of his mouth, because if you don't bust the head out through his mouth, you don't get a hook in the fish. So I don't like that. I've lost a lot of fish. We had a jig head back in the day from Buckeye called a spot remover. I lost so many fish on those things because of that flat surface. I don't want that. So it needs to be round, something that when I set the hook, I can easily pull the lead through his mouth, through his lips, bust the mouth open so the hook penetrates. All right, so nice round design, something that'll slip through the fish's mouth really easily. All right, obviously, you know, there's a lot of information about head design and how well it goes through rocks. I hang them all up, from round balls to things like this. So this is a little combination of a round ball, but we've got a flat surface on the backside so that the plastic butts up nicely to it. Because it's flat on the backside, I can put a little dot of super glue on there and it just butts up really nicely to the jig head. I don't do screw locks, all right? So I don't like screw locks because there again, a screw lock is nothing but a brush guard. You're gonna lose a lot more fish on a screw lock. I use Z-Man plastic. Look, that stuff, it ain't gonna tear, guys. Like, you see that? Like, that's not gonna tear. So I designed it for the baits that I use. You see, that's gonna butt up real nicely. And if I choose to use super glue is gonna butt really nicely up to the back flat side of that jig head. The back side can be flat, but the front side never needs to be flat. So the keeper, talked about the brush guard. Let me go back to the brush guard. I was about to get to the keeper. Let's go back to the brush guard. All right, so the reason that I don't do screw locks, I said brush guard, but screw locks. The reason I don't do screw locks, you screw your bait down on here, you can use Z-Man plastics with a screw lock, but when you screw it down on there and your worm is kind of set off, you know, something like that, if you can see that, what happens is you've kind of pretty much just destroyed the bite of your hook. See how the hook point stands up above the line tie? And you just destroyed that. And pretty much, if you ever seen a brush guard on a jig, what does it look like? It's at an angle at the hook point, right? So when you put that screw lock on there, you don't have as good a hook penetration. So I don't use those. I use a little dot of super glue and I point it up like that. And that's just what works best for me. Now, so this is the way I like to throw it. The keeper. Obviously for Elastec, there's a little, there's a rigging learning curve when it comes to Elastec. And so the keeper is just a simple soldered wire keeper or welded wire keeper on the back of it. Didn't do fluorocarbon because sometimes it gets a little wonky if it, after you catch quite a few fish on it, comes out. Just a wire keeper. Holds the Elastec really good. And ain't coming off, folks. That's one problem you're gonna have with this is the bait slipping down. Because if your plastic does get wore out, you'll be able to put super glue and butt it up nicely against that flat surface on the back. And then that keeper just works really good with Elastec. So I just went with that. The only thing that I think I do want to change here, talk a little bit about the gauge wire hook. It's longer than, let's say, the Power Finesse Shrooms hook, but not a super long giant hook. The reason I don't like a really long hook, this is a 3/0, I think. 3/0 hook. I don't like 4s, 5s, it's too much. You need something else if you need a 4 or 5/0 shaky head hook. The reason I didn't go with a 4 or 5/0, because you destroy the action of the bait. Shorter hooks work out better for you guys. Shorter hooks, I got more plastic out here loose and free to do whatever I needed to do. So I went with a 3/0 hook. Strong enough to use at least to 15-pound test line. And on sizes, I'm going with 1/8, 3/16, 3/8. The quarter and 3/8 are my sizes here. You can see here's a couple of the other sizes. We'll do green pumpkin and black. I'm not crazy about colors. I don't need a whole lot of fancy colors, and if I do, I'll paint them. But green pumpkin and black on colors is where we're gonna be. This is a 1/4 ounce. This is a 3/8 ounce. I had the 1/8 ounce before. I think the only thing I do want to change is that line tie. Change it from vertical to horizontal. I like to see that because it does feel like it's a little snaggy at the moment. That's the shaking my head. Shake your head. I think it's gonna be a good one. Something I'll use all the time, or something I know for a fact that you guys use all the time, because shaky heads, a jig, and a plastic, it catches fish from saltwater to freshwater to Florida to Texas to Smith Mountain to Beaver Lake to fishing up north. That little guy right there has won a lot of money. I don't care what trail you fish.